Good morning and hello, One Life. Thanks for hopping on the call today. It's a wonderful Monday and a great way to launch your week with a short, action-packed session of information. Your lines are all muted and will stay muted till the question and answer portion of our call at the end. This is time for us to get together every Monday, get plugged in, see what's going on in the One Life world and what's laying ahead this week. Going to go ahead and roll right into our devotion this morning, and glad to have Mr. K.T. Tyler with us. K.T. serves as One Life's one of our division managers, and he lives in the Baltimore, Maryland area. He's been with One Life for 4.5 years. KT's team really started to develop and grow after the October 2014 Leadership Summit. KT is very involved in his community, and we're glad to have KT on the call today to kick off our devotion. KT, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can, KT. Thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to the devotion this morning.
Okay, thank you for having me, and I thank you for this time, and I don't take it lightly. So I'm going to get right into it. Okay. Success starts with praising God in all things. If, as we are told here, God can work through all circumstances, then that means, for example, that jail time can be turned into major success. Thus, you may have major reasons to praise God even in the low times. Today's devotion is going to be titled No Matter What. And the scripture focus is going to be Philippians 1 and 12, and I'm going to read the New Century Version. Okay. I want you, brothers and sisters, to know that what has happened to me has helped me spread the good news. We all could learn a bit from the Apostle Paul. He was deliriously happy and joyous because of what Christ had done in his life. Even when he was chained and shackled in a dark prison because of his faith, Paul praised God and was excited to deliver his message of the gospel. He says in Philippians 1 that he knew he was suffering for a purpose and that he rejoiced because of the advancement of God's message even when he couldn't be out preaching the gospel. My friend, you can't defeat a person who gives God praise no matter what. And the best part is that God can work in your life the same way he worked in Paul's life. God can turn some of the worst possible situations into some of the most worthwhile experiences if you have the right attitude. Praise God today, no matter what. I'm going to say a prayer for the group. Let's look to the Lord. Father God, we thank you for this morning's early rising, for those that are on the call that's listening to the sound of my voice. We thank you for the weekend. And we just thank you for just the opportunity for us to be alive on today because someone didn't wake up this morning. So we don't take it in vain. We know that we are here for a purpose. We're here for a reason. And the more that we learn to be like you, the more that we learn to praise you, there's a lot of things in our life that can be different. So we thank you for the opportunity for us to be a part of this organization called One Life America. We're not here by an accident. We're here for a reason. So we thank you that each and every person that's listening to the sound of my voice will find a reason and a purpose in their lives and gravitate to that mark and fulfillment to knowing why they have associated and acquainted themselves with One Life America for a journey of success because the company has a track record that is worth following. So we thank you right now. We ask for traveling mercy for those that are going to be on the highways and byways this week going to appointments, that we have traveling mercy and that we're doing this for a cause and not just to help out the families that we're going to meet on this week, but also to help our families to create a situation where we can live a life that will be fulfilling because we have the necessary income to provide for our families. So we thank you in all that we do. We give you all the honor and all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
KT, thank you so much for those words of encouragement. So good to be reminded to give it to God. He can handle all things, and our attitude definitely makes a difference. Sometimes that's tough, but you have to keep that in mind. We're going to roll right into our production update. So this is for week of 223 through 227. One Life as an agency wrote $579,235 of submitted annual premium. Our top 10 producers for that week: number 1, KT Tyler with $15,618.12 of AP. Mark Hamilton with $14,586. Tim McCabe with $13,028. Jessica Brown with $11,006 of submitted AP. Number 5, Richard Johnson with $10,797. Jamie Moats, $9,039 of submitted annual premium. Steve Thornton, who we'll have on the call shortly, $7,821 of submitted AP. Number 8, Keith Johnson with $7,564. Jeffrey Arroyo with $7,347, and rounding out the top 10, Aziz Aditamiran with $7,280 of submitted annual premium. Great job, guys, and we had a lot of producers putting up stellar numbers this week across the board. We did end our March Madness contest. The last day for a dated application was yesterday. So the contest is officially over. We apologize for not providing week 1 results. There were some issues with reporting that have now been corrected. Both weeks and the overall results should be out midweek this week. Remember that the Academy and Leadership Summit is March the 23rd through 25th, so we're 2 weeks away from those events. Are you a leader? Have you registered for the event? The Academy is right there with it. Are you a new agent in need of sales or in need of sales training? Have you registered? If you have not, the only difference between you and someone who is registered is a decision and a few keystrokes. You can go right on to the One Life homepage, onelifeamerica.com. About halfway down the page, there's 3 large buttons. The far left one is Leadership Summit. The far right is the Academy. Those links will take you straight to registration. We are in crunch time. We need a head count. There's a few seats left for both events, so please get on there. Make sure that you register and get prepared to be here with us the 23rd through the 25th for the respective event. Also, check out our social media outlets through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Those are great ways to stay connected to One Life. Derek Moore's Monday motivational video will be out here shortly, so watch for that as well. And also take advantage of going to Derek's website on our One Life page. It's under the Leadership tab, and a lot of great information, blog posts, and a lot of things that are posted there for your convenience and to share with your agents and your fellow coworkers. We're glad to have Mr. Steve Thornton with us today. I want to unmute his line here in just a few seconds. But first, I want to introduce Steve. Steve is a super busy guy, and I've been working with Steve now for several months trying to get him on a call, but he's always busy in production, training, interviewing, developing and growing his business. Matter of fact, Steve is out running appointments this right now, today, and he's actually pulled over on the side of the road. Steve serves as One Life as one of our agency directors. He's been with One Life for 6 years. Steve has taken our top personal production leaderboard by storm, earning 3 consecutive Agent of the Year honors in 2012, 2013, and 2014. He also manages agents and is continually growing his team. And being around Steve, it's evident that he's a family man and he enjoys spending time with them. It's quite a treat to have Steve on the call today, and I know that everyone will have a great educational session hearing from him sharing his successes in personal production and management. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute Steve's line. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, David, can you hear me?
I am. Steve, thank you for joining the call today. I know you're out and about running appointments and probably sitting on the side of the highway somewhere, so thanks for taking time out of your day to jump on the call with us.
Well, thank you, David, and I appreciate you inviting me to come on and inviting me to speak, as well as home office there at One Life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Steve. I'm going to turn it on over to you now.
Okay. Thank you, David. First of all, my name is Steve Thornton. I live in Central Florida between Tampa and Orlando. I work out of the One Life Lakeland office. David wanted me to share a little bit about my past with you, as well as some the key points that I thought would help new agents. And first of all, I'm married with 3 children. My background basically was 10 years of manufacturing and about 10 years or plus of transportation before I got into the insurance industry. My first job in the insurance industry was not doing life insurance, actually. It was with a P&C license, doing P&C stuff, mainly work comp, that I got into the industry. And then I kind of segued into doing large group health insurance for a few years with a broker out of the Tampa Bay area. And it was only because of a mutual relationship with someone that I went to church with and my kids played baseball and football with that I decided to give this a try. And at the time, it really wasn't probably the first option that I would have taken as far as selling insurance products. But looking back now, it basically was a blessing in disguise. And I think sometimes God leads you down a road sometimes that you don't want to go down. And sometimes I think we're resistant sometimes when I think He knows what's best for us. But having said that, I would tell you that I would equate a lot of the success I've had since joining the One Life family to the system. And I would tell you the system in many different ways, just the unwavering support from our home office, our owner, and all the executive staff at One Life put you in a position to succeed. Everybody knows about the lead system, the platform they provide for us, which is very important as well. And I would tell you that I don't think I'm the by far the smartest agent One Life has, and I definitely don't think I'm the best salesman that One Life has. But I'll tell you some things that when I got into this business, I had that's when the economy started to turn about 7 or 8 years ago, which is really what kind of forced me into this. And I pretty much just leaned on the senior agents that were at the One Life office at the time, and just kind of picked their brain. They probably got tired of seeing me come because I was totally 100% committed and plugged in. I picked their brain, every one of them. There was probably 4 or 5 agents that probably had 20 to 30 years worth of experience, so I had a lot of senior agents to pull from. And if I didn't get a comfortable answer to a question, I might ask one. I might ask all 4 or 5 of them the same question to see what the kind of response I would get. So I guess number one, I would tell you to be 100% committed and plugged in. Get with your upline managers and anybody else that works in your local area or office that you can plug into as a resource, because I think that's the only way to speed up the learning curve. And I think there's a lot of moving parts to this, whether it's from the carrier side, learning the products, and so on. So just to go down a list of a few of them, I would tell you that one, being organized, and that can be a lot of different things. I would tell you understanding what kind of products you're going to be up against out in the field when you're selling, when you're going into a home. Because I think when I was a new agent, I was quick to fold my book up and walk out of a house if they told me they already had insurance or wasn't interested in it. But I was taught basically that when they say no, they mean K-N-O-W. They don't know enough. It's your job to explain it or tell them. So I'll tell you that using that kind of mentality kind of helped me along the way of if they're not going to buy anything and you spend a little bit of extra time going over different things with them or asking them questions, there's nothing really lost there, but there's a lot to be gained. So having said that, we run up against a lot of term insurance out there, and we primarily do, whole life coverage. And you run into a lot of accidental death and dismemberment coverage that people have at banks. And a lot of times we're dealing with people that aren't really educated into the insurance products. They don't really know what it is that they have. So just taking the time to break it down for them and explain it to them, I think sometimes opens up a door for you that normally wouldn't be there, because they perceive they have everything taken care of. So having that studying up on the difference between the three, if you're brand new to the industry, I think would help you a lot when you get into a house, so you can understand how to basically talk to them. And I would tell you the other thing would be to study the underwriting guidelines before you hit the field. What I used to do was go through an application, and I would John Doe it and just go through and just fill out just have my upline manager look at it to make sure I didn't miss something. And I would actually keep that until I got familiar with that product in my sales bag. So during the presentation in my book, if I got stuck on something or didn't know what to do, I could flip back to that example that I had, if you will, as a blueprint on what I needed to do next. And, I didn't learn with a flip chart system like the nice one that One Life has now. But I was taught the old school way by using brochures and sitting down with the client and having a conversation with them. But the way I was trained was that there was a certain method to it, and and it depends on how your upline manager works for you or whatever. But I basically made bullet points of, okay, I need to cover this, I need to do this, I need to do that, so that I wouldn't forget something. Because sometimes I think you can get flustered, especially when you're dealing with an aggressive client that set up a lot of roadblocks or obstacles at the very beginning that will frustrate you. And sometimes they'll throw you off your game and you won't remember where you were in your presentation or your pitch. So I think doing a bullet point like that and keeping it in your sales bag when you're new will kind of help you stay on point so you don't miss something. And I'll tell you that I do the same presentation pretty much the same way every time without much deviation, unless the client is so pushy that they push you into doing it. I still cover the same material that I would in my normal presentation, but sometimes you have to skip around or something to answer their questions or to be able to move on with the presentation until you've taken care of an objection or an obstacle they have. And having said that, besides studying the underwriting guidelines, you'll know all the ins and outs about the product that you're going to be selling. And sometimes I think it's best to stick with one product instead of trying to. And I know in different states we have different products available to different groups. But whatever your upline manager suggests that your lead product or your top two products are, maybe you need to start there with just learning one product and then adding the other ones on as you get more familiar with them. And studying the underwriting guidelines to learn the ins and outs of what they'll write, what they won't write, I think will help you tremendously when you get into the field. But you always do have the option of calling your upline manager because I know we're not going to retain or remember everything. But I think that would help out a lot. And I would tell you, I kind of like my schedule for the week. I see a lot of agents try to wait till like Monday or whatever to start printing their leads or getting them ready. I was always taught basically that Friday is when, you pull your leads, you print them, you organize them, you sort them. Sometimes you have all your leads in one city, but you might have 5 different zip codes or 4. It depends on how you want to do it. Some people sort them by zip code, sort them by city. If you have multiple cities, that way you can try to, target a certain area a certain day and then the next day another area. However you do it, but preparing the leads, we always numbered ours. So if we were leaving a voice message or if we're using a telemarketer, we could use that lead number in reference to what particular appointment it was for instead of having to write down the name or the address. It just simplified it. But organizing your leads and getting them prepared and ready on Friday before Monday ever rolls around. Now, the other part of that would be the apps and the supplies. Being a new agent sometimes you might not think about an app that you don't write a whole lot. Maybe your main carrier that you write a lot, maybe it's something that they won't write or don't fit, and you forgot the application that you needed. So I would always tell someone to get a tub or a box or a milk crate or something and keep your supply of all the carriers you write at the office. So if you do come across something and you call your upline manager and they tell you, well, you can't write it with this product, you need to use this one, but I don't have that app. Well, if you kept supplies with you, you'd be able to go out to the trunk and grab it if you needed to. Or even something simple like a replacement form or another pair ID form. Most of the time at your local offices, they will prepare folders with all that in there. But if not, and you don't have a local office, just make sure you have all those supplies with you. The other part of that would be the appointments. I can tell you that one of the Henry Mulder was an agent that was with our office many years ago. I think Henry's retired now. But one thing he shared with me one day when I seen other agents in the office throwing up big numbers. I mean, you'd have agents writing $10,000+ a week, or even $8,000 or $9,000. And back when I first started, I didn't light the world on fire when I first started. I had kind of had a slow start. I mean, a $2,500 or $3,500 a week back then for me would have been a good week. And, you know, I was doing everything I was told to do, and it was just frustrating because I felt like that, you know, there's no way that I would ever write a $10,000 a week. I just thought it was impossible. And, you know, not having a lot of sales background, you know, something that was shared with me with my brother-in-law years ago in the PNC arena is that, you know, it doesn't matter what you're selling, you know, what product or what, you know, what you're selling. It's all about a numbers game. You know, getting in front of enough people to do enough presentations, to do enough pitches, to do enough closes. And the more people you get in front of, maybe you won't sell as many of them to start with, but it'll actually help you because you'll be able to do more pitches, your presentation, and at least attempt to close if you can't close them. So I would tell you that, you know, that old saying, practice makes perfect. And not only that, I would say there's not a substitute for experience in a lot of ways, because that is the best teacher. I know a lot of you have heard that before. And I think hearing those objectives, and I'll tell you what my manager told me early on, was to write some of them down. Maybe not in the house with the client, but when you get back in the car before you pull off, make notes on the lead card. That way when you get back to a monthly meeting and there's a question and answer session or something of that nature, you can basically say, well, you know, I got this objection. I really didn't know what to say. And, you know, you'll have 3 or 4 senior agents that'll give their opinion, which may vary slightly or maybe, you know, quite different, but at least it would give you ammunition next time you got into a house and you heard that same objection. Being prepared like that will help tremendously. And here's what Henry told me, getting back to what I was meaning about Henry. He asked me one day when I shared that story with him about thinking that that was impossible to write that much business. He asked me how many leads I was pulling, how many appointments I had every day, how many closes I had, and by doing that, basically, and back then I think I told him I was, you know, had 3 or 4 appointments a day and was doing drive-bys. He said, well, that's your problem right there. I said, well, what do you need? He said, you're not getting in front of enough people. He said, you need to get in. He said, you need to have more like 7 or 8 appointments every day. And, you know, sometimes, including me back then, you know, sometimes I was real hesitant to pull a larger quantity of leads. We didn't have a PPL back then, but even if your PPL would permit it, sometimes people have a comfort zone of maybe only pulling 30 or 40 leads a week. And it's been my experience that with a stack of 20 fresh A leads, you know, you're only going to get probably 7 to 8 appointments out of that stack, because you're going to have people that don't put their phone numbers on there that you're going to have to do drive-bys on. And you're going to have people that put phone numbers on there. But just like me or you, if someone calls their house, especially from a different area code than what you live in, and they don't recognize the number, they're not going to answer the phone. So those are the ones that you're going to have to do drive-bys or door knocks or whatever. And I know some of you guys that have experience that come from other different insurance companies were taught to door knock on all your leads. And I know there's some guys that do that. But I can tell you that from my experience, the time that I've been here, and the agents that have been the most successful at One Life, and just about every office having either make their own appointments or have an appointment setter, and they run these leads off of appointments, not strictly on doing drive-bys. But I can tell you that sometimes that helps pull my week out, because I do drive-bys on the ones that I can't get appointments on or get a hold of. So I think it's a necessary thing to be able to do. But I would say that sometimes when you're doing only drive-bys, sometimes it's you have a lot of idle time to sit back and kind of strategize your next move. What I like about the appointments is whatever kind of software I use, Microsoft Streets and Trips or MapPoint USA version, but load everything in there, including the ones that I don't have appointments on. That way, if someone no-shows me or whatever, I have right on my map, I can see where the next stop is close by to do a drive-by on. Having said that, what Henry was getting at was I wouldn't get in front of enough people. And if that means sometimes coming out of your comfort zone to pull more leads, to get in front of more people, that's going to equate to more sales. So if you feel like that you could rut and can't get past a certain number or whatever, I would just encourage you to maybe make sure you have enough appointments, people to see during the day, because the more people you see, the more sales you're going to have. It's just simple math. And I would say the biggest thing is twofold. I would say work ethic. Being out in the field to work. You've got to treat this just like a job that you would treat if you worked a salary for a corporation or punched a clock. I mean, you've got to get out there and work every day. There's no substitute for it. I mean, it's getting out there and beating the bushes and just working the leads. They're not going to work themselves. And I see sometimes people have good intentions on doing that, but I can tell you the first probably 6 months I worked here, probably at least once a week, I was questioning why I was doing this, wanting to quit. But I'm glad I stuck it out, because I can tell you that it's made a good living for me and my family, and it's been a blessing. But had I gave up on it too early, I might have, and part of that is the learning curve, learning the ins and outs, the objections, the rebuttals, and kind of learning what you're doing, especially if you're new. But the main thing I would tell you out there in the field is focus. I think sometimes that we can lose focus on what we're doing out there. I mean, whether it's stopping at a shopping center to pick up something, or trying to rush through your day because, and I'm not saying that, a sporting event for your son or daughter, whether it's your daughter doing dance or your son doing football or baseball is not important. But I think, sometimes we get distracted when we're traveling out maybe an hour from home to work, making sure we've got everything done to leave at a certain time to be back. And that's something that I've never done. Luckily, I have a wife that's always been able to help with that, with the kids. So I'm not saying that some of you people out there that are maybe single parents, that's not an option for you. But I think that sometimes I think sometimes the worst is working the local area close to home, because then you can stop by people's houses that you pass by that or family members, or maybe you get distracted about paying a bill, or just running an errand, or just any multitude of things I think can distract you from being focused on what you need to do. My wife knows not to bother me too much unless it's something that's emergency. She pretty much leaves me alone because she knows that that's my focus. And I can tell you that that's probably the area that I'm probably, I would say, the strongest, because almost to the point where I'm having an attention deficit disorder, if you will, where I'm just totally focused when I'm out here in the field working. There's most of the days that I don't even take lunch. I may bring something in the car to snack on or whatever, but my focus and dedication is on seeing as many people as I can during the day. And at the end of the day, some days are not as good as others. Some weeks are not as good as others. But I think if you look at the averages on your monthly averages, that'll tell you whether, how you're doing, or be a good way to gauge it. But that's pretty much all I had today, David, unless you had anything else.
Well, that's great stuff, Steve. That's what I was really hoping for, is, kind of the insight to the day in the life of number one agent with one life, and what it takes to get there, and some secrets to your success. I've got some questions that I've actually kind of jotted down here, but before I dive off with my questions, I'm going to unmute everyone's line, or I'm going to set your lines. Your lines are now set to where *6 will unmute your line. If you have a question for Steve Thornton, feel free to dive in here. We'd love for Steve to answer your question. Give this about 10-15 seconds, and then I'll fire away with my questions.
Yes, Steve, my name is Donald Watson, and my question to you is, once you kind of been out of the groove for a while due to whatever circumstances, how do you, or what have you done in the past to get back in that zone to get where you are today?
Well, I would just tell you some of the same things that I've touched on today here. I mean, if you've been out of the business for a while and you're just getting back in, kind of going over the products and the underwriting guidelines of the products you're going to be selling, knowing what you're up against, and just getting organized before you hit the field running. And just leaning on your upline manager and the training platform. I mean, there's, websites and blogs and in-car training with your upline manager. There's the academies that they put on out at the home office. I mean, there's a whole resource of stuff out there to help you along your way. I mean, it's not something I invented. It's something that was shared with me. I'm just sharing with you guys what was shared with me in the little bit of time I had on the phone call. It's kind of hard to. I could probably spend an hour on just appointment setting or door knocking, or any one part of it to really dig deep down into it. But I hope that answered your question.
And to the caller with the question as well, Steve's absolutely right. There's a number of resources, and a great place to go is to our e-learning site, which is learning.onelifeamerica.com. You'll actually get an opportunity to see a video of Steve Thornton doing an at-the-table mock presentation, along with several other of our top salesmen and managers conducting presentations. Do we have someone else with a question on the line?
Yes. Steve, I was wondering, how many A, B, and C leads are you pulling a week?
Well, that's a good question. I would tell you, depending on my PPL, probably on average, I would say 50 leads a week. Some weeks I pull 60, probably just as many as I pull 50, I pull 60. But there are some weeks, if my PPLs drop some, I might only be able to get 40 leads that week. But I would tell you this, I always used to pull as many B and C leads, especially when I was new, that I could. Even though it feels like an abundance amount of leads, you never know. I mean, I've had weeks where I've done better on my B leads selling than I did my A leads. I think that's the misconception about leads in general. I think people think that every lead that One Life puts in your hand, A lead wise, is an automatic sell because someone sent a card in. Or if you use a telemarketer, I've heard agents complain before that the telemarketer, and I would tell you this, I think every agent should call for themselves for 3 to 6 months to learn the ins and outs of what the appointment setters go through on the phone, because you'll find that even when you have a no-show or the person's not interested or they're not home when you get there, a lot of times they're quick to blame the telemarketer, when I know for firsthand when I make calls for myself, I ran into the same stuff when I made my own. So it's part of that is just people in general. I mean, everybody's different. Some people will schedule an appointment with me and forget about it. But I would tell you this: if someone no-shows me or whatever, let's say on Tuesday, I use one of those little yellow sticky delivery notices on the door. I'll actually call them and leave them a voice message. And if I don't do that, at least I put the sticky note on the door, and I'll come back by that house during the week, sometimes 3 or 4 times. And sometimes I might not catch them till Thursday, and sometimes I wind up selling them. It wasn't that they weren't necessarily interested. They just maybe forgot about the appointment or had something come up. I did sit with a gentleman last week that was an insurance agent that sold insurance in New York many years ago. And he kind of laughed when I did the presentation. I sold him on an app because I was using a red felt pen to highlight all of the brochures that I was going over with him, explaining everything. And he said that that's the same way he was trained all those years ago. And I kind of laughed with him, and I said, well, this is how I was trained many years ago. And I said, I really haven't wavered from the way I was trained. I still do the things the same way that I was taught, So I still use that red pen to this day, but we kind of joked about that, me and the gentleman noticed that. But
Great question. Do we have any other callers with questions on the line? Those are great questions. And Steve, if you will, I'll just kind of recap what some things I picked up. And you mentioned several times being organized and how important that is. Having your leads printed. Don't wait till the last minute. Have your week scheduled out. Know what your objectives are, and that's something I do in a different form. But every night I sit down and I make myself a tomorrow's to-do list. So I know all of my objectives for tomorrow and things that I have to get completed by end of day. So be organized. Simplicity. If you're new starting out, pick a carrier or two and really focus on those particular carriers so that you're not overwhelmed. I love the analogy of no means no, K-N-O-W. Make sure that your clients are fully informed before you close that book and walk out the door. As long as they are 100% informed, know the repercussions of saying N-O-N-O, then you've done your job. Have a full day of appointments. And then when you get stood up, be active. Take a drive-by, knock a door, go back by somebody else that stood you up. Be active and have a full day. And most importantly, focus. Don't get distracted. I've never seen a policy written at a Bass Pro Shop or a Walmart. So when you're out and about, and Steve's right, I'd never enjoyed working around my hometown because my wife wanted me to grab the dry cleaning. There was, the kids needed to be picked up from school, somebody taken to a baseball practice, just a lot of stuff going on, and it's harder to stay focused and give your full attention. Is there any other questions before we wrap up our call? Steve, we really appreciate you. That was great information, and I know that this will be a recorded phone call, so we'll get the recording out over the next 24 to 48 hours. So thanks again, Steve, for taking time out of your day to join us. Get registered for the Leadership Summit or the Academy. Those events are coming up in 338 hours. Yes, it's that close. So thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join the call, and have a fantastic day, One Life.